So this happened about 6 months ago, but I'm still processing it honestly. I'm 33 and this takes me back to when I was a scrawny 14-year-old freshman at Jefferson High in Ohio. Picture this, 5 feet 4 inches, maybe 110 pounds soaking wet, thick glasses, braces, the whole 9 yards. I was basically a walking target for every bully stereotype you can imagine. My mom always packed these embarrassing lunches, like peanut butter and jelly with the crusts cut off, apple slices in a baggie, and a juice box. Yeah, a fucking juice box in high school. My dad drove this beat-up 1995 Honda Civic that made this horrible grinding noise when he dropped me off. I'd literally ask him to drop me off 2 blocks away so nobody would see the car or hear that awful sound. The whole family dynamic was just off. My parents were both accountants who seemed more interested in spreadsheets than their son's social life. I had exactly 0 friends. Not even the other nerds wanted to hang with me because I was somehow even lower on the social ladder. I ate lunch alone in the library most days, reading fantasy novels and pretending I was anywhere but Jefferson High. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, was literally the only adult in that building who was ever kind to me. She'd save new sci-fi books for me and never made me feel weird about spending every free period there. Enter Tyler Matthews. 6 feet 2 inches, star football player, dating the head cheerleader, you know the type. This guy made it his personal mission to make sure I knew exactly where I stood on the high school food chain. And spoiler alert, it was at the very bottom. Tyler had this perfect fucking life, rich parents, brand new Mustang for his 16th birthday, college scouts already calling. Everything I wanted and could never have. And somehow, my mere existence seemed to offend him on a personal level. I'm not talking about your typical, nerd gets picked on, stuff. Tyler was creative with his cruelty. He'd wait by my locker every morning with his buddies, making sure I started each day feeling like absolute garbage. Called me, 4 Eyes, Twig Boy, and my personal favorite /S, Future Incel, yeah, even back in 2006 that was a thing. The morning ritual was always the same. I'd walk down the hallway, hoping maybe today would be different, and there they'd be. Tyler would lean against my locker with his arms crossed, flanked by his crew, usually Derek Mason and Connor Walsh, 2 other football players who lived for Tyler's approval. They'd start slow, just comments about my clothes, always hand-me-downs from my older cousin, my backpack, a faded JanSport from middle school, or whatever book I was carrying. But the physical stuff was worse. Shoulder checks in the hallway that sent my books flying. Accidentally, knocking my lunch tray out of my hands. Once, he literally picked me up and stuffed me in a locker. I was stuck there for 20 minutes until a janitor heard me crying and let me out. The cramped space, the smell of old gym socks, the laughter echoing down the hallway as I begged to be let out, I still have nightmares about that. Tyler had this thing where he'd follow me to the bathroom and turn off the lights while I was in there, leaving me in complete darkness. Or he'd wait until I was at the urinal and then flush all the toilets to make me jump. Sounds stupid now, but when you're 14 and already scared of everything, it was terrifying. The worst part? Teachers saw this stuff happen and did nothing. Tyler's dad was some big shot donor to the school, owned 3 car dealerships in town and basically funded the new football stadium. So Tyler was untouchable. I told my parents, but they gave me that boys will be boys speech and said I needed to toughen up. My dad actually suggested I join the wrestling team to learn to defend myself. Yeah, because putting me in a room with more jocks was exactly what I needed. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Those 4 years messed me up bad. I developed anxiety, barely ate, couldn't sleep. My grades were decent because I threw myself into studying. It was literally the only thing I had control over. I spent lunch periods in the computer lab learning programming because it was the one place Tyler never went. I lost about 15 pounds during sophomore year because I was too anxious to eat. My mom kept asking if I was sick, but I couldn't tell her the truth. How do you explain to your parents that you're literally afraid to exist in your own school? I'd wake up every morning with this knot in my stomach, dreading the walk down that hallway. Weekends were my only relief, but even then I'd spend Sunday nights lying awake, knowing I had to face it all again Monday morning. The computer lab became my sanctuary. Mr. Rodriguez, the programming teacher, never asked questions when I showed up every lunch period. He just let me work on whatever I wanted. I taught myself HTML, CSS, basic JavaScript, anything to keep my mind off the fact that I was a social pariah. Those quiet hours in front of a screen, solving problems that actually had solutions, were the only time I felt like I had any value. I started having panic attacks junior year. The first one happened right after Tyler shoved me into a drinking fountain in front of a group of girls. I thought I was having a heart attack, couldn't breathe, chest tight, hands shaking. Ended up in the nurse's office, but told her I thought I was getting the flu. Started carrying paper bags in my backpack after that, just in case. Senior year was the breaking point. Tyler cornered me after school and told me I was pathetic and would never amount to anything. He said guys like me were meant to serve guys like him, and I better get used to it. I went home that day and cried for hours. But something clicked. I realized he was probably right about one thing: guys like me did serve guys like him. But not in the way he thought. I was going to be his boss someday. I was going to have everything he took for granted, and I was going to earn every bit of it. College was like stepping into a different world. Nobody knew scrawny little me from high school. I hit the gym, got contacts, learned how to dress. But more importantly, I doubled down on computer science and finance. I was angry, and I channeled that anger into pure ambition. The transformation wasn't instant. I spent my first semester at Ohio State still looking over my shoulder, expecting someone to shove me or call me names. But slowly, I realized I could reinvent myself. I started lifting weights religiously, not to get huge, but to feel strong for the first time in my life. Got LASIK surgery with money from my summer job. Learned to dress better by watching YouTube videos and asking the guy at Men's Warehouse for help. But the real change was mental. Every time I wanted to quit on a difficult assignment, I'd think about Tyler telling me I'd never amount to anything. Every all-nighter studying for exams, every internship application, every networking event where I felt out of place, I'd remember that feeling of being powerless, and it drove me forward. I interned at 3 different companies during college, always saying yes to the hardest projects. My junior year, I worked at a startup where I basically lived in the office, learning everything I could about business operations, sales, and technology. The founder took me under his wing and taught me that technical skills were just the beginning. Real success came from understanding how businesses actually work. Got my CS degree with a 3.8 GPA, then landed a full scholarship to Northwestern for my MBA. During business school, I focused on finance and strategy, knowing that's where the real money was. I was still that angry kid inside, but now I had the tools to channel that anger into something productive. I graduated in the top 10% of my class and had 3 job offers before graduation. Worked 80-hour weeks, took every difficult project nobody else wanted. Got promoted 3 times in 5 years. By 30, I was a senior director making mid-6 figures. By 32, I was VP of Strategic Partnerships making, well, let's just say I could afford pretty much anything I wanted. The best part? I'd grown to 6 feet 1 inch, filled out nicely, and honestly looked nothing like that scared kid from high school. Success is a hell of a glow-up, let me tell you. I had a corner office, a BMW, a downtown condo, and more importantly, I had something Tyler never had, the satisfaction of earning everything through my own effort. Fast forward to last November. I'm sitting in my corner office reviewing resumes for a new senior manager position on my team. It's a great role, $140,000 base salary, good benefits, real opportunity for growth. We'd been looking for months to find the right person. The role was actually really important. We were expanding into the West Coast market and needed someone who could manage client relationships worth millions of dollars. I'd been personally involved in the hiring process because whoever we chose would be working directly with me on some of our biggest accounts. The company had grown from a small fintech startup to a major player in digital payments, and this position was crucial to our expansion plans. I'd already interviewed 6 candidates that week. All competent, but nobody who really stood out. I was starting to think we'd have to expand our search when my assistant knocked on my door. "Mr. Davis, your 2 p.m. is here. Tyler Matthews for the senior manager position." My assistant knocks and says the 2 p.m. interview is here. I glance at the resume one more time. Tyler Matthews, 15 years sales experience, currently unemployed. Wait. Tyler Matthews. From Ohio. Graduated Jefferson High in 2007. The resume showed a pretty typical career trajectory: started in car sales, daddy's dealership, no doubt, moved to pharmaceutical sales, then medical device sales. But there were some red flags. Long gaps between jobs, decreasing responsibilities in his recent positions, and now 8 months of unemployment. The cover letter was generic and had a few grammatical errors. Not exactly the caliber of candidate we usually considered for this level of position. I tell my assistant to send him in, and I swear my heart stopped. It was him. Same Tyler, but different. Cheaper suit, receding hairline, maybe 40 pounds heavier, and this desperate look in his eyes I'd never seen before. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by the nervous energy of someone who really needed this job. He clearly didn't recognize me at first. I mean, why would he? I looked nothing like the kid he used to torment. "Mr. Davis? Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really need this job, sir." The irony was not lost on me. "Mr. Davis," and "sir," from the guy who used to call me worthless. I gestured to the chair across from my desk and watched him sit down, fidgeting with his tie. This was already going better than I'd imagined. I played it cool for the first few minutes, asking standard interview questions. His answers were okay but nothing special. He was clearly desperate, kept mentioning his mortgage, his kids, how he'd been out of work for 8 months after his last company downsized. His story was pretty sad, actually. Laid off from his last job when the company restructured, burned through his savings, behind on his mortgage payments. He had 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and his wife had gone back to work part-time at Target just to keep them afloat. The confident jock who used to own the hallways at Jefferson High was now just another middle-aged guy struggling to pay his bills. But I wasn't feeling particularly sympathetic. This was the same person who made my teenage years a living hell, who convinced me I was worthless, who made me dread going to school every single day for 4 years. The scared kid inside me was practically vibrating with excitement at seeing Tyler Matthews reduced to begging me for a job. Then I decided to have a little fun. "So Tyler, tell me about your high school experience. Were you involved in any activities?" His face lit up. "Oh yeah, I was team captain of the football team at Jefferson High. Best years of my life, honestly. I was pretty popular back then." He actually puffed out his chest a little, like he was trying to recapture some of that old swagger. "We went to state my senior year. I had scholarship offers from 3 different colleges." "What happened with the scholarships?" I asked, genuinely curious. Well, I tore my ACL during the playoffs. Ended my football career. Went to community college instead, then transferred to Ohio State for business." The disappointment in his voice was obvious, even after all these years. "Jefferson High, huh? Class of 2007. Yeah. Did you go there too?" I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "I did. Though I was a year behind you. Jake Davis. You might remember me as 4 Eyes or Twig Boy." The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. He just sat there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. I let the silence hang for a good 10 seconds, watching him process the fact that the scrawny kid he used to torture was now sitting across from him in a $3,000 suit, deciding whether or not to give him a job. I don't. Jake. Holy shit, you look. He was scrambling, sweating now. Different? Yeah, I get that a lot. Turns out good nutrition and not being constantly stressed about getting shoved in lockers really helps with development. I let him squirm for another minute, then leaned forward. "So Tyler, let's talk about leadership experience. See, this role requires someone who can mentor junior team members, create an inclusive environment, make sure everyone feels valued. Tell me about a time you've done that. He tried to bullshit some answer about bringing the team together at his last job, but he was completely rattled. Kept apologizing, saying he was just a kid and didn't mean anything by it. The whole time he's talking, I'm just sitting there thinking about how this is the same person who made me eat lunch alone in the library for 4 years. I mean, Jake, we were all different people back then. I've grown a lot since high school. I'm a father now, I understand how important it is to treat people with respect. He was literally begging at this point, and I could see the desperation in his eyes. This was a man who had nowhere else to go. I nodded along sympathetically, letting him think maybe he still had a chance. You know what, Tyler? You're right. We were just kids. And kids sometimes make mistakes. His face showed the first hint of hope. I could practically see him thinking he might actually get this job. But here's the thing, I've built my entire career on making sure environments I'm responsible for are safe for everyone. Especially people who might seem like easy targets. I stood up and extended my hand. Thanks for coming in. We'll be in touch. The hope died in his eyes instantly. He knew. He knew exactly what had just happened and why. As he was leaving, he turned back one more time. Jake, I really am sorry about high school. I was going through stuff at home, man. I held up a hand. Tyler, we all go through stuff. Some of us choose to lift others up. Some choose to tear them down. You made your choice then, and I'm making mine now. I watched him walk out of my office and knew I'd never see him again. 2 weeks later, I hired an excellent candidate, Sarah Chen, a brilliant woman from MIT who reminded me a lot of my younger self. Someone who'd been underestimated her whole life and deserved a chance to shine. She's been crushing it ever since. Do I feel bad about it? Not even a little bit. Tyler had 15 years to become a decent person, to maybe even reach out and apologize. Instead, he only remembered my existence when he needed something from me. He spent our entire interview talking about his glory days, clearly still the same person who peaked in high school and never grew beyond that. Some people call it petty. I call it justice. That scared little kid in me finally got to see the look on his bully's face when the roles were completely reversed. And let me tell you, it was even sweeter than I imagined. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, but sometimes it's also being in a position to deny opportunities to people who made your life hell.